Hi, this week we're going to be looking at expanding those three alternate product projects that you created a few weeks ago. And specifically, we're going to be looking at ways to engage students in that process by requiring them to give us some feedback or some type of reaction to those particular projects. So there will be three products that we create this week, one associated with each of the products that you've posted to your portfolio. So to start with, you would log in, you would enter the activity, and as usual, you'll see that there's a document here to give you instruction. Okay, this gives an overview of what we're looking to do, the assignment, and some examples. Please don't feel you're limited by these examples. If you have another creative way to do this, please send me an email. We'll talk about it, and more than likely, I'm going to be very excited to have you go ahead and do that. The goal here is to move from presenting data to students to involving them more deeply in the process. Now, you may have included that as part of your process in the original product, your original design for using it with your students, but we're going to create some things here to kind of codify that and to support those documents or those activities. Now let me discuss for just a few minutes the types of things that may be represented here. It could be as simple in some cases as a quiz. Other examples would include open-ended questions, and these can be designed to either have students reflect on what they've done or to generate ideas and thoughts to guide them in what they're about to do. It could be a form or some other mechanism to allow them to upload or share some work that they've produced that supports the earlier projects, or it could be any number of other things. The idea is to have students think deeply about the topic that you're addressing and to provide some evidence or feedback of that in some form. Now let's take a look at how you will actually include that in your portfolio. So let me jump over to my portfolio here, and you can see that I have an example of an infographic that we've done previously. So here's the introduction to that. Here's the actual infographic. And the other example I used was the word cloud. So here is some text introducing the word cloud, its purpose, etc., and the word cloud itself. Now, in your portfolio, you're going to have a total of 3 instead of 2. Okay, now the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to come down here underneath the first project, because I'm going to expand this infographic by adding, if you want to call it an assessment or a feedback or an interactive piece that is related to this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a text box. Now if that's in the wrong area, you can just drag that up and make sure it appears underneath your first actual product. Now I've taken a liberty of typing out the text so that you don't have to watch me do that, and here you go. So I think I'll take that as a title. I'll call it student assignment, and I'll make it a heading 2. And the reason I'm doing that is in my case it matches, so I'm staying in the same style. It matches this heading up here. And then there's a short description of what this assignment is going to be. So you must include this piece for each of your 3 products, this introduction. Think of this as the teacher or the person who's visiting your website, giving them context to what's actually going on. So let's read through just to see the types of things that are included. After reviewing and discussing the infographic, students are asked to complete a Google form detailing their own plans for completing college applications. This activity is designed to help students understand all elements of completing a college application, identifying important upcoming dates, and developing their own plan and timeline for applying to colleges. Okay, now what I'd like to do is I'd like to go out and I'd like to get a copy of that form. So you can see here that I've created that form over here. It's asking them if they're considering the name of the institution, if they're considering early admission, what the deadline for that would be, etc. And then there's a series of questions. So what you want to do is go get the shared view and copy that. Come back to your portfolio. and use the Embed tool to insert that into your document. Now again, if it winds up in the wrong place, it jumped down there below word cloud, that's easy enough to fix. You just grab it and move it up a little bit. Oop. I'm a little out of place there as well. Again, you can center it. Make sure that everything you do, take the extra couple of seconds to do the formatting, because it makes a big difference. You know, centering this, resizing this to something that's appropriate. You know, it may seem like a small thing, but it's actually very important. It makes the site more accessible and more professional. So there you go. I've got my introduction, and then I've got my example. Now I'm down here at my word cloud, and here is the picture. So down at the bottom, I want to put a description of my assessment or feedback or interactive piece. As before, I want to include a text description. And as before, I've prepared that in advance. Let me just copy that and paste it into here. I'll do that little bit of formatting just to make it, that makes a big difference. That little bit of formatting makes this a much more professional and accessible piece. Now, in way of context, this assignment involves the Gettysburg Address and making a word cloud as a better way to understand the Civil War and the entire environment that surrounded the time period where this speech was made, and why it was such an important and impactful speech. Okay, so in order to make this a little more interactive and support this, I've created a Google Doc, and you can see that the Google Doc actually has open-ended questions, and there are 3 parts. So this first part would be completed prior to reading the Gettysburg Address. So perhaps I'm doing a unit on the Civil War, and we've studied, part of that war. We're into it already. So before we read the Gettysburg Address, students know that there's been a battle. They know the Battle of Gettysburg has occurred. And then these questions ask them to say what they know about the time period, and then to make predictions about what might actually be President Lincoln's intentions and what he might be trying to emphasize in this speech. Part 2 is after they've read the Gettysburg Address. Now they're going to interpret it in light of their knowledge of the Civil War and in context of that time period. So they're going to read it, and they're going to answer some additional questions about what they think about maybe President Lincoln's purpose was. Who do you think he was addressing during that speech? And then the third question here is to just pick out 5 words that you think sum up the purpose or intention of that speech. And then, of course, the third part is after the word cloud, and to kind of compare what they thought with what they see and what the word cloud tells us. Okay, you always want to check your share settings, so you can see that I do have a link here for view only, but I think what I'm going to do is come in and I'm going to say that anyone with the link can view this. So I've double checked that, and that is the link that I like to use. But let's look at another method of installing this in your portfolio. So we've looked at this embed feature, and this works really great when you're dealing with products that are not associated with your Google environment. But let's say we want to use some of these tools here. I've got this Drive tool that I can go into. And I also can come right down here and pick directly. Since this is a Google Doc, I could either do that through Drive. I'm going to go through Docs right now and give it a second to look at my Drive. And there's the document right there. So I'm going to insert that. That came in very large, which is fine, but if I wanted to match more of the other documents, I can simply resize it and center it on the page there. Okay, when you finish, remember, whenever you finish working with anything in Google Sites, you're going to have to remember to republish. So publish that, and to see how this is really going to look for someone else, you want to say view the published site. It will open in a new window, and now you can see that I've got my nice infographic here. I've got this student assignment description. There's my form, and down below that I've got that same pattern with my word cloud, a description of the of the initial product, an example of it, the description of the assessment, and this nice view of my interactive form associated with that product. Okay, so if you have any questions, if you need any help, please send me an email. If you'd like to try something different or you're unsure about exactly what you want to do, send me an email and we can discuss it.